my name's Amy and welcome to the video. Today we are essentially starting over in World of Warcraft. What you see here is my brand new character who has just appeared in Shadowglen. She is a night elf hunter. I have played a hunter before, but not for quite a long time. And to be honest, I haven't played World of Warcraft in years. The last time I had an active subscription was back in 2020, very early in the year. And I was never a particularly active player before that. I have come and gone from the game over many years. But it has felt recently like something I have really wanted to get back into. My life, honestly, over the last few weeks has been really quite stressful. And especially these opening zones of World of Warcraft feel so nostalgic and comforting to me. So it has been a delight to come back to the game, to start over, and to soak up the ambience of really one of my favourite places. I did consider making this character Horde. I was quite tempted by a blood elf, but ultimately I just love some of the Alliance starting zones too much. Teldrassil is one of my favourite maps in the entire game. I also really like the Exodar. So I do tend to play Alliance, and I think Night Elves will always be my favourite. So we are starting off with our very first quest. It is, not surprisingly, one to kill a number of Night Sabers. I don't think there are many MMOs out there that start in a different way to this. Now, the character I've made here is actually based on one I'm going to be writing in a novel this year. Now, there is no crossover with World of Warcraft. This is not fan fiction or anything of that nature. But the character of Mystrall, who I will be writing, physically does look something like my character here. She is also very proficient in combat. I haven't yet decided what weapon she's going to wield in the book, but it may well be a bow. And so there is the added element here as I build the character of Mystrall in the game, that I also have the book character in the back of my mind. That may down the line affect things like what skills and weapons I choose to use, what pets I have, what armour I choose. I'm not exactly RPing here, but I am on an RP server, and there is that crossover for me between what I'm writing and what I'm playing, because games and MMOs in particular have always been a big influence on me. So there's our first quest completed. We're going to head back to the quest giver, whose name is Ilthalane. We'll hand that in, and we are officially level 2, off to a good start there. That has unlocked a new skill for us, which is good. I definitely need to sort out my skill bars. I could do with more than just the one at the bottom, but we will save that for another time. We've got some new gloves for that quest, which I think have exactly the same stats, but I do like the look of them more, so let's have those. On to the next quest, to retrieve various items from the Grelkin. I'm fairly certain these quests haven't changed since I last played a Night Elf, and we're going back quite a number of years. I was actually quite surprised when I logged back into my account, because for many years I played a Draenei shaman, and I was looking at her in my character list, wondering why she was level 45. I was absolutely sure I had levelled her more than that, and I was really doubting my own recollection. It turns out I had levelled her all the way to level 110, but there have been so many changes in this game since I last played that she has been knocked down to level 45 by one of the past expansions. So I may go back to her at some point. I do really like levelling and questing, although that still came as a bit of a shock. So far here, nothing is actually hostile until I attack, which is pretty much par for the course for a starting zone. We are so far getting one of the requested fell moss from every single Grelkin, so that is speeding up the quest. I think it is fairly rare in this game now to wait a long time for drops in quests. I do remember back in the day when I first played having to recover some kind of item from Murlocs in a fairly early Night Elf zone, and I killed hundreds of them. The quest just went on and on until the item dropped. But things are very different in Azeroth these days, at least I found them to be. So I will turn the interface off when I can, just so we can soak in more of the views. As I said, this really is one of my favourite places. I love everything to do with the Night Elves, except perhaps their run, which is a little bit strange, but I can live with that. Their architecture and the places they build in, the music, it really, really appeals to me.
How may I help? Can I assist you? Goodbye.
And we are now level 3 with those 2 quests complete. We have some new trousers. Let's put these on. I'm fairly certain every starting Night Elf who can equip leather or mail, I'm not sure which those were, ends up with those shorts. They look very familiar. I'm fairly certain we will also get a similarly ridiculous top to go with them. So we are heading now to speak to a priestess, Dentaria Silverglade, but before that let's just have a look inside. This is more of the classic Night Elf architecture that I like so much. I suppose compared to newer zones in Azeroth, it looks fairly rudimentary now. It's quite blocky, but there is so much nostalgia attached to these zones for me. If I was ever going to properly RP in-game, it would have to be in a place like this. Having said that, I haven't seen a single other player around yet. I don't remember the starting zones ever being particularly busy, or certainly not for a long time, but it is very, very quiet now. I did notice when I made Mystrall that I could have had a choice of starting zones. I'm not sure where the other one was, the name was not familiar to me. But it would, of course, have defeated the object of going for comfort and nostalgia to start anywhere except Shadowglen. We will clear out the inventory now. Just get rid of a few of these items. And then I think it might be on to the next quest. I did really like the choices of new hairstyles and facial features for Night Elves when I made this character. I've gone for a new hairstyle that I hadn't seen before, just because I felt it suited Mystrall the character best. Obviously it clips terribly with my bow. I don't know that I've ever played a game that has managed to add a bow neatly onto a character without having it clip through the back of your head, your hair, your ears. It's always a bit unwieldy. Oh, we're into the water. But I do love bows in all games, so that's just something I have to live with. And now we have a gathering quest. Collect 7 moon petal lilies. I noticed they seemed to pop into view as soon as the quest appeared, or possibly it was just the glow around them showing up. I do think World of Warcraft holds your hand as a new player more than it used to. It seems to highlight enemies you need to take out or things you need to collect, which I don't mind, but it does perhaps reduce the immersion a little bit. I don't know how many new players World of Warcraft is likely to get these days who are not already familiar with RPG mechanics. There may be a few, but it is a fairly well-worn game now, and I would think most players don't really need that extra help. Have an achievement there, something to do with armor skins, I think. And we are now heading to find a dryad, Teldrassil. Again, a very familiar quest. I'm sure I've done this multiple times before. I believe we are heading off to face some spiders. I did notice in the settings that there is now an arachnophobia mode in the game. I've seen that in quite a few games recently, and I think it's a fantastic idea. The spiders here are fairly cartoony, but I can see they might still bother you. And certainly I've played games where the spiders are much more lifelike. So it's good to see these extra accessibility options popping up for people who want them. Now this time we need to take out 12 spiders, so this one is going to take a little bit longer. I don't expect any of them are going to drop anything I actually want, but I find it very hard to leave any loot behind, even when I know it's useless. Teldrassil is probably telling me all sorts of interesting things here, but I have to admit, I haven't been reading what she's saying. Quite a lot of games do this these days. Guild Wars 2 is very guilty of it, where in events or quests or even quite large scale battles, the NPCs are imparting story to you as you fight. Now here it's not too bad, the gameplay is very slow and steady, but I have definitely played games where it is impossible to keep track of the story because you are simply trying to stay alive. Now there is a named spider over there. I'm fairly certain once we have killed our 12 spiders, we will have to take that one out. So we won't go over there immediately. Just 4 more to find. I should point out that there may well be a known skill rotation for leveling a hunter, but I have no idea what it is. I'm not particularly interested in going for the most efficient or fast gameplay. That isn't really why I play games at all. And I certainly don't raid or really do group events, even in online games. For me, even World of Warcraft is quite a solo affair. So I'm not worried about efficiency, I'm not worried about skill rotations or maxing out stats or armour. I'm really just here for the atmosphere more than anything else. Now, as I suspected, it is time to take out Githis the Vile. That's really hard to say. Githias? Githias? Anyway, it is the spider we saw before, so we just have to work out how to get to her. I'm going to head back this way, and of course everything has respawned already. I think the game is compensating for the potential of a lot of characters being in here at once, trying to kill the same spiders, which is really not the case. I still haven't seen anyone else. We are coming back now to where we saw Githis before, but I don't know if I can get across. I think there is probably a canyon. There is. I almost certainly can't make this jump, but I'm going to try anyway. No, that was predictable. But I think we are now on the ramp that will lead us around to our destination. We're nearly there. I don't really want to take out every single spider up here if I can avoid it. Let's see if we can reach Githis from here. And we can. Let's see what reward we can have. We have a belt and a cloak. I think we have to go for the cloak. And it had an upgrade. Oh, we've teleported back. Did that always happen in that quest? I don't know. I don't remember it. We definitely have to put the cloak on. Well, that's a little bit disappointing. It does slightly look like I'm wearing a bath towel. Ooh, we are level 5 and we can now tame a pet. My skill bar is looking a terrible mess now. I might just tidy this up a little bit. It's going to need a bit more work than I want to give it just now. But we'll get a few of these out of the way. Most of these skills are familiar to me from playing a hunter before. There are one or two I don't recognise though, which is probably just because I've forgotten about them. I don't know that the class has changed that much. Now we have to head to the Moonwell next. but I think it might be time to tame a pet. Again, I'm not worried too much about stats here. I would just really like a cat, even if this one is a mangy one. That's a little bit sad. I could have a spotty night saber or a stripy night saber from Shadowglen. If you've also watched my Guild Wars 2 video in Xingji Island, you will have met my tiger pet called Spot, which is a Star Trek reference. So I think, for once, we will have a cat that is actually spotty. There he is. He's called Cat, appropriately enough, but we're going to rename him. Say hello to Spot. I get quite attached to my pets in World of Warcraft, so you might be seeing a lot of Spot. I might end up keeping him for a long time. Whether that is good gameplay or not, I'm not too worried. I was expecting Spot to do a little bit more there. I don't know that he was very useful against that Grelkin, but never mind. Right, let's head over to the Moonwell. I am a big fan of the Moonwells. I think they are fantastically atmospheric. I really love that glow. I love the arches around them. We're once again getting some history here. I am painfully ignorant of World of Warcraft lore, I have to say. I've never really kept up with it. I don't know what the current story is. And I don't feel the game throws story in your face, certainly at this point and at this level. I do have a tendency to just grab the quests and not really read everything. I'm sure there's actually masses and masses of fascinating world building and history that have gone into the settings here. I would like to know more about them, but when the game is the scale and age that World of Warcraft now is, it's quite overwhelming. And I do have the problem that there's only so much game lore I can take in and remember, because it is far more important to me to be able to remember my own novel lore. I have my own fantasy world, Eterna, and I really am the only one who can remember everything there is to know about that. That is, at the end of the day, something I have to put a lot more effort into memorising. We are now coming towards the end of the quests here in Shadowglen. We're heading up now to the top of the tree or tower, or both. I do think this used to be a quest when I first played a night elf, and it took me a ridiculously long time to find this ramp. No problems today though. I do like how towering these trees are. I think WoW has always had better trees and better forests than a lot of its competitors, and a better sense of scale than other MMOs that came out in the same era. Sites like this one with Teldrassil and Shadowglen and the whole of this island really do make the most of the graphics that were available at the time. And as I said, they are so very atmospheric. That is still what draws me back. So it is time to move on. We're going to be leaving Shadowglen and taking our Moonwell vessel to the next village, which is Dolinar. Let's put our new vest on, which is every bit as ridiculous as I expected it to be. It does show off our tattoos though, which is quite nice. Again, the game is speeding things up for us. We didn't have to run out of the cave, it teleported us out, and we don't even have to run back down the ramp from the tree, we can just jump off. So it is up the hill and onto the road out of Shadowglen. Let's take this quest as we passed, which is of course a delivery to Dolinar. As ever in RPGs, all the NPCs in a particular location do helpfully need you to go to the same place. Here is the game helping us out again, showing where quests are available. I don't know if I love that. It is, again, perhaps a little bit too much hand holding for me. I probably could turn that off. I'm not in a rush here. I want to explore, I want to quest, I want to level. I am definitely not rushing to max level or to get to any kind of end game content. So I don't really need to know where the quests are in advance. I would prefer to stumble across them. So we are going to head down this lovely winding road to Dolinar. I'm fairly certain there are some quests to pick up along this road, but for the time being I'm going to leave them. We will come back for them later and just enjoy the scenery for a few minutes. I'm reminded as I run along here of just how much the atmosphere of zones like Teldrassil have influenced me as a writer. It's quite difficult to write about things like lighting effects, and the colour of the air is how it always feels to me when I'm here. It's hard to get those things across in fiction, but I have definitely tried. The Night Elf zones really did influence the last book I released, which is a cozy quest fantasy called Wild Home. It's Fae in that instance instead of elves, but the atmosphere and ambience were definitely drawn from games like this. So we've made it to our destination. We are handing in the Moonwell water we brought with us and picking up our next quest. Again, there's a little bit of history being imparted here, but that is actually where I am going to leave things for today. We've got lots more quests to pick up and lots of exploring to do, but for now I am just going to enjoy Dollenhalf for a few minutes. And that will bring my exploration today to a close. Thank you very much for being here. I hope this was as nostalgic for you as it was for me. I hope you enjoyed the atmosphere here, that you found it restful, and that this video was a chance for you to unwind. It is goodbye from me, from Mystrall, and of course from Spot, and I will see you next time.